when I think of everything that is wrong with the current Democratic Party, Debbie Wasserman Schultz is one of the first pictures that come on my mind right there. And I mean, from 2016 on to the present, she just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth of everything she stood for, being part of that Hillary Clinton wing of the Democratic Party, which she still so very well represents.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. Look, she is corporate. She is, it's not even, this isn't a secret. It's not a conspiracy. She takes money from everybody from Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, fossil fuel fracking. I mean, you name it. And she's very big into insider trading. And these are just facts. So, those alone to me are reason to want to unseat somebody. The idea that we can have a representative that is not, does not have to answer to special interests or corporate money, that's an offering. It's an opportunity. Because regardless of whether or not you agree with someone on all the issues, the idea to have somebody that can be talked to and reasoned with and is willing to discuss things because they don't have to, toe some corporate point or some talking point that they have to make, that's a value. And that's really what this is about. And regarding issues, I mean, the only things that she and I are the same on are women's right to choose and that we're all in favor of LGBTQ justice, right? Like that's big. Those are the only two issues where she and I are the same.
Yeah, well, and on those issues, that's probably overall where there is a meaningful difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, or on the culture war issues of the Democratic Party. That's the one thing that remains better about the Democratic Party over the Republican Party. Otherwise, they're both horrible parties, and I consider both parties right-wing parties, where the Republicans actually flirting with fascism, and the Democratic Party being where the Ronald Reagan Republican Party was in 1985, with a very small left-wing social democratic faction that are just kind of malign and kind of in the corner.
Yeah, well, they're scared. And, I was just talking about this today. I was on with Osiris in Middle MAGA, and just as the range of people that I talk to, like I can talk to anybody, that. But, we were just talking about this, and it's definitely, this is a problem. I mean, the Democrats cannot get out of their own way. They cannot get out of their own way. They have no strategy. They are not appealing to anybody. Both parties are completely corporate. It doesn't matter. Like, they use the LGBTQ issue, and whether you call that, rainbow washing or pink, whatever they're calling that, pink washing, whatever it is that. And then they use the women's right issue to fundraise. So those are the issues that they harp on. And yeah, they do matter. I'm not saying they don't matter. Those definitely matter. But the fact that she and I can both be in the same party and be so totally far apart, like where I consider myself to be academically would be an actual leftist, right? Not necessarily in a partisan manner, but just in a sort of, philosophical manner, right? But she's someone that is neo-lib bordering on neocon, and yet she's in the same party as I am. So it's really, it's obviously it's a big tent. It's a very big tent.
Both parties, in fairness, are kind of big tents, because when I say Republicans flirting with fascism, I don't want to make it sound like I'm saying all Republicans are fascists, because there's a difference between, let's say, Ron Paul and Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, I got issues with Ron Paul on economics, even on a few social issues. But Ron Paul is a whole different animal from, let's say, someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's basically Benito Mussolini in a female pantsuit. Whereas in the Democratic Party, there's a difference, between, I would say, at one time I would have said in the Senate, there was a difference between, I'm going to use somebody other than Bernie Sanders. I would have said John Fetterman and I'm going to use a corporate Democrat, the late Dianne Feinstein or someone like that.
Right.
I mean, but John Fetterman kind of became a disappointment recently.
Oh. Yeah,
so,
I said he's dead to me now. Like, it would be like, I would like rip
here.
the shirt in some sort of like expression of like, Jewish guilt, but like, he's dead to me now. But, I think that the common denominator, when you look at this, and yes, there's definitely this fascist element that's happening, but I would suggest that it's nonpartisan. And that fascist element is really the corporate takeover and when we're talking about corporate takeover, we're talking about like every aspect of our government and our fourth estate essentially has been corrupted and taken over by corporations, which should be scary. And that is where you see sort of the shift from what would be, a democratic republic towards a much more fascist oligarchic situation. And, when people talk about, oh, Trump is the end of democracy, I'm like, the fact that we're having this discussion as to Biden and Trump, that we're already past the end of democracy. The fact that those are our choices, that's done. That ship sailed. So then the question becomes, how far are we going to let it go fascist? How far are we going to allow the corporations to take over for regular people? And there are certain Republicans, and we talk about it on our show all the time, like Thomas Massie, who is a completely non-corporate representative from Kentucky. He is conservative, does not meet with lobbyists, but represents his people. That's someone I can work with in this world. So for me, it comes down to like, and I say it all the time, I will support a non-corporate conservative before I will support a corporate liberal. Because when people are not bought and paid for and they're truly answering to their constituents, then we're coming at this as like an honest discussion, then we can come up with solutions for our people. It's when there's other interests involved that people aren't having honest discussions. They're just there because they're there. So then we're not going to come to any conclusions. So I think we just, I don't love, and again, I would say if we were looking at them on paper, yes, I am clearly closer to the Democratic Party than the Republican Party. But at this point, this is what's going on now is a uniparty of corporatism. And it's just, that's all I see.
Well, I do see that there is kind of a bipartisan path toward fascism in a way. A few months ago, I had Keaton Weiss from Due Dissidence on the show here, and he told me like, and it's true. I mean, we were talking about this whole Trump phenomena, and I want to make it clear. I find Trump to be a goofball. I find him silly. And sometimes I'm probably more dismissive of Trump than I need to be because he's such a silly goofball.
Buffoon.
I think he's stupid. A buffoon.
He's a buffoon.
Yes, perfect word. Whereas George W. Bush even though George W. Bush was kind of dumb and stupid, he was establishment enough that he had competent people around to push us on this road toward fascism, and we have been having our civil liberties encroached since the days of Bush and Cheney. Not that we were a civil liberties utopia prior to Bush, but since 9/11, it's been our free speech rights been encroached on, our right to privacy rights has been encroached on, and it's just little by little, they're getting very bold that they don't give a damn about freedom anymore, or liberty, or just a concept of living in a free society.
Yeah, no, they definitely don't. And what we have to be most careful about is how they use fear to basically bully people into submission to foregoing their liberty. Now, I am someone who actually read the Patriot Act because I am that dork. Back in, I don't know what year was that, 2002, 2003, whenever that came through.
2001.
Was it? Well, okay, I'm a little old. So when, and I remember thinking, okay, so we're basically giving up our 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment rights. And nobody seems to be saying anything, and none of these Congress people have even read this. So I saw the writing on the wall back then that this was where we were headed. And the interconnectedness of what's happening now with censorship, with the Patriot Act, with the cop cities, with this sort of authoritarian push that's basically coming down on all of our rights, because Our right to protest, I don't think people understand how critical that is. That's one of our First Amendment rights, the right to assemble. It's a right to petition for grievances. It's sort of that same little package. But, this has been happening for a long time, and it is all part of the same sort of shutdown. When we look at, for example, one of my viral clips just got pulled off of TikTok today, just got taken down. And and I know why. Of course, I know why. It has to do with me talking about anti-Zionism and trying to, educate people. And the Israel lobby does not care for that. So, this type of censorship to me is the scariest threat that we're facing right now in terms of our freedoms. And a lot of times what they'll do is they'll use fear mongering for people to, basically consent to giving up their freedoms, just like they did, after 9/11 with the Patriot Act, and people sort of rolled over because everybody was so scared of terrorists and so scared of Arabs and, Islamophobes. And they were, so we allowed that. And it's sort of the same thing that's happening now. People don't like stuff. They find certain things offensive. Jewish kids on campuses are saying that they don't feel safe when they actually mean they feel uncomfortable. And just too bad on that. Sit in your discomfort for a little while. It's good for you. So it's like we've gotten to this point where we care more about people's feelings. And in order to protect certain people's feelings, we're willing to shut down everyone else's rights.
Such as what's going on in Texas with Governor Abbott putting a special class on Jewish students. And I have to go make a little disclaimer. I don't want to make it like Jewish people. Well, I mean, you said it yourself. The Jewish people are not a victim; they're survivors.
They're survivors.
And here's the thing. But if you're going to have a special class of protection, you're going to have it for everybody or nobody. In the sense that and he's not doing it because he loves Jewish people. He's doing it because he's a Christian Zionist, and they look at that. Pardon the language. That goddamn piece of real estate in the Middle East that the evangelicals want. They just look at the people that are living there as custodians until the second coming, and then
right.
That's what it comes down to. And so I would tell people who are anti-imperialists, who may be mad at Jewish people for what they're doing in Gaza, which that's government of Israel. That's not Jewish people.
No, it is not Jewish.
I always want to make that distinction there.
Yeah. Well, and just for people's information, there are more Christian Zionists in this country than there are Jews in the whole world. So I want people to understand that. So yes, it is definitely Zionism is the creation of a Jewish state, but the concept of it and the support of it and the money for it and all of the cheerleading for it is pretty, I would say, equal distributed amongst different people that are not Jewish as well. So,
And the saddest part is that even the good cop Zionism that used to exist, labor Zionism, is no longer a thing. It's dead. And so there's, for those that are hanging on to the concept of a two-state solution, I mean, I don't care if it comes in the form of a two-state solution, a one-state solution where everybody's living in peace. Just something's got to take place where peace is happening and nobody on either side is getting hurt anymore, and that's should be the goal. And
that should be the goal, but that is not the state of Israel's goal. The state of Israel has made it abundantly clear since its inception all the way until like this minute that there will never be a Palestinian state. So
even the government says they're opposed to a two-state solution.
Right. Yeah. So they are, this is what I say, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. They had their Jewish state. They had it. They had it in 48, but no, they had to go rogue in 67. They have to be in violation of every international law. They have to be committing a genocide. So inevitably they're going to end up losing it all.